Today we confer an honorary degree on the Honorable Eric Garcetti, Mayor of Los Angeles. Mayor Garcetti was first elected Mayor of Los Angeles in 2013 and was re-elected in 2017. As mayor, he has raised the city's minimum wage, lowered its business tax, and brought jobs to the city. He is a former member of the Los Angeles City Council, where he served as president from 2006 to 2012. Mayor Garcetti was a Rhodes Scholar at the Queen's College, Oxford, studied at the London School of Economics, and has taught at Occidental College and the University of Southern California. He has also served as a lieutenant in the United States Navy. The Honorable Eric Garcetti, it is my great pleasure to award you the degree of Doctor of Public Service. Please join me in congratulating Mayor Garcetti.
President LeBlanc, distinguished faculty and staff, to friends and family, and especially mothers here today, a very good morning to the community of Southern New Hampshire University. And to the class of 2018, to our graduates, you did it. You have achieved something that has lived in your heart and in your dreams, and all of you that are here today have achieved that as well. Let us congratulate our graduates here today for what they have done. You have all come together today to celebrate as a single community. And what an extraordinary community this is. What an honor it is for me to travel across a continent, to come to this arena and to witness the stories like the one that April just shared with us today that I know her family is so proud of. Because your story is the most improbable, audacious, unlikely of successes, both as a university, which started as a two-room business school in downtown Manchester and has evolved into a force of the future and a force of nature, one of the most important educational innovators of our time. But is also an improbable graduation and community of individuals, some 1,800 of you joining 4,600 others throughout this weekend that have overcome the challenges of your own lives. Traditional, non-traditional students, folks straight out of high school, and others who wondered, would I ever be here today? Each one of you took your own journey to get here, to this moment. I've had the honor of speaking as a public official in many graduations, from elementary school to graduate schools. But I want to say this is probably the greatest honor that I've ever had, of speaking to this group, because you are the face of the world today, the face of this country right now. You represent the diversity of all of us. And you've traveled here from every state in this nation, from 50 nations across the globe. In fact, you've traveled 3.8 million miles collectively to be here at this graduation today. Anybody here from Los Angeles? All right. Don't forget to vote. Just kidding, I'm termed out, it's all good. But to the graduates, breathe it in. I remember what it was like to sit in those seats, and you're thinking about your past, and you're nervous about the future, but just pause for a moment in that giant run-on sentence of life and punctuate this moment with a period, maybe an exclamation point, even a question. As Pablo Neruda once wrote, it smells good to turn our face only in the direction of purity, to feel the pulse of the reigning sky of our diminished youth. Your story is the story of courage, the story of navigating borders, and that's the theme I want to share with you here today. To get here today, each one of you had to navigate borders. Borders of geography, of opportunity, borders of identity and of your own doubt. Borders that might have seemed like insurmountable boundaries at first blush. But you overcame them, and today you will leave this building as graduates. We hear a lot about borders today, that borders are things to fear and to defend. And don't get me wrong, it's important as a nation to have borders, for neighbors to delineate property lines. But humanity never took a step forward by staying inside our given boundaries. Navigating borders is central to who we are as human beings, as a country, as a world, as a people. Innovations require breakthroughs from music and art and engineering and science. If human beings hadn't navigated borders, we wouldn't have buildings like this. We wouldn't have museums and rockets. The Chinese emperor Qi Shi Huang tried to keep out history by walling up his kingdom and stopping time. But even he could not keep out the ideas and the people of the future. In fact, it's how we left Africa and settled this globe, how the first inhabitants crossed a land bridge between two continents to settle the land that is underneath us here today 10,000 years ago. It's how these great United States were built as people crossed the Atlantic, sometimes in the sunlight on deck, sometimes in the darkness below in chains, but always with great courage to found a new nation. 50 miles east of here, in the heart of Boston, a group of patriots had to cross the borders of their own fear and political risk to ignite a revolution and to build a country of their own design. And when they succeeded, their children and their children's children had to cross the borders of their own beliefs to liberate everyone in this nation, to confront places of discomfort, and to find out how we would not just survive, but thrive. And because they did, we now are in this graduation ceremony in the greatest nation on the face of this earth, a place I still think is the best hope for freedom in the world today. When I was in college graduating, we had a great president, President Ronald Reagan, who called on the world to tear down walls. Now out of Washington, we hear calls to build walls up, and journalists tell us every single day that we are erecting walls between us as a people, that we are erecting walls between people who don't think like us, people who don't look like us, people who don't sound like us. But I stand here today as the leader of the largest city and the largest state in this great union to say that's not what I hear and see between Americans, that we talk more about our collective future and our common ground than that which separates us. Now, you're graduating at one of the most exciting and anxious times in our history. Technology delivers culture and food and basic needs faster than ever before, but we wonder if that same technology might take away our future jobs. Every year we have medical breakthroughs that save lives that were unimaginable a generation ago, and yet folks wonder if they can pay for basic medical coverage. We have rockets that are exploring our solar system, landing here back on Earth, but that Earth faces rising temperatures and extreme weather events that make us question whether life can continue here. This excitement and this anxiety coexist, kind of like the feeling you have today. I call it anxitement. This anxitement about the future asks two main questions about our world in the days ahead. Is there a place for me in this world? And is there a place for meaning in this world? And the future sometimes gives us a false choice, that we can either try to fight that future that is coming, we can be future phobic, or we can just lay back and accept it, be future passive. I think that's a false choice. And you as graduates can go a third direction, to be future guiding. As SNHU graduates, I know that you can cross borders, literal and figurative and personal. And the one thing each one of you uniquely has in this room that nobody else has here is your own story. Navigating borders is central to my story. I'm an average American. As I joke, I'm the average Mexican-American, Jewish-Italian, mayor of the most diverse city in the world. My grandfather, Salvador, was born before we had this term as a dreamer in Mexico in the midst of revolution. He lost his father in that war, and my great-grandmother carried him over the border in her arms as a one-year-old baby. He came to Los Angeles. He volunteered to fight for a country that he always knew and loved and became a citizen when he left his two young children in World War II and defended this nation's freedoms. Came back home and became a barber. My grandmother, a meat packer. They worked hard till he could open up his own barber shop. I'm also the descendant of great-grandparents who fled the Russian Empire when pogroms and anti-Semitism was taking their lives away. And little did they know, these folks who crossed oceans and rivers and borders to come here, what this nation would offer their children. Little could they predict that their grandson and great-grandson would end up leading the city that embraced them and their diverse histories and their journeys. And in turn, my parents raised me with the cultural fluency and pushed me to be courageous about leaving. When I graduated college, I spent that summer in Burma, where people there I was brought to teach really taught me about bravery. In the midst of a war zone, where people had had homes burned and siblings raped and killed, they taught me about freedom even though they had never experienced it before. In Ethiopia, where I joined with women who were trying to stop the barbaric practice of being cut when they became women after being girls, I learned what health and courage were about. When I stepped outside my own comfort zone and joined the United States Navy, I served 12 and a half of the best years of my life, knowing that there is something bigger than ourselves when we leave our comfort zone. Through those experiences, through my family's stories, through my years leading Los Angeles, I've discovered that you can never allow boundaries to become barriers. You simply have to cross them. And that notion is embedded here in this university. This university is a leading light illuminating the future of higher education. And think about it. Isn't it wonderful that you received this education? And yet we see higher education so often cloistered off. I heard of an elite Ivy League university that said recently that they could double the number of people they admitted and give everybody free tuition, and their endowment wouldn't feel it. And my only question was, then why not do that? If higher education is like love, the two inexhaustible resources that if we give to more people, we will receive more of it back, we need more models like SNHU, which is saying that education should be accessible to everyone willing to work hard. Think about what our country would look like if you had that experience times 1,000. We hear people staying in their spaces, retreating to their tribes. The pundits call it right now in our country that there are two Americas. There's the rural and urban divide, the immigrant and native born, the coasts and the heartland, red and blue. I do believe there are two Americas, but it's none of those. It's Washington, D.C., and the rest of us. Washington, where party is more important than the nation, where difference is to be celebrated over finding common ground, where our word doesn't have to mean anything, but contrast that with this picture here and the picture that you take back home where you live. We are a common community celebrating our collective achievement here today, embracing a shared hope and optimism about our future. And the fact is we have so much more in common, and crossing borders in our daily lives help us see that up close. We sometimes don't see the common humanity in the eyes of either our neighbors or complete strangers. And when we do that, that leads to hopelessness and cynicism, a fear of the future. But we can't do that. So what I would compel you to do in your future is to continue to cross those borders. If you've never spent time with veterans, spend some time with us. Hear our stories. See we're just regular people like you. And in fact, given how many people are graduating, a member of the armed services may be sitting right next to you today. If you've rarely interacted with a Trump voter because you're a Democrat, or a Hillary or Bernie supporter because you're a Republican, take a few minutes to go do that, calmly, without shouting, not through Twitter, and find out where you might agree. Never did more than drop some change in the hands of that homeless mother down the street? Why don't you go to the shelter where she's staying and have a meal with her and hear the struggles in her life? You've read about a refugee crisis overseas but never encountered what that means in reality? I guarantee you in your hometown right now there's a family from Syria or South Sudan or Afghanistan. Seek them out, learn their life story, and hear what compelled them to cross a border and to come here. To do this requires generosity. It requires decency. It compels you to feel uncomfortable and to find common ground. Imagine if we had that in Washington today. Imagine if our leaders could embrace discomfort more often, talk to their counterparts on the other side of the aisle, ignore the extremists on both sides of the debate, and while they still held fast to their principles, they would find common action to take, whether it was defending our dreamers like my grandfather, lifting wages up for workers, investing in our crumbling roads and bridges, or improving our schools. Americans, no matter what party they are part of, want those things. Imagine the possibilities if politicians crossed borders and injected some decency into our discourse. Maybe we could tear down the boundaries of mistrust and replace them with the new borders of compassion. Which brings me to a final point. Life is fragile. I don't have to tell this group of graduates that. You know it. There have been points in your life where you doubted everything. Broken relationships and maybe marriages, unemployment, for some of you homelessness, going off to fight wars, moments when you wondered, did I have it in me to get this job done? But we've also seen, out of tragedy and sadness, the face of love. We've felt it in our friends, in our families, even through the kindness of strangers, who remind us that amidst this fragility of life, there is an unbreakable strand of human connection that pulls us together and helps us along. So here is my advice to you today. Be ambitious about your personal relationships. Approach your ambition personally with that same hunger you have professionally to learn, that passion to act, and that boldness of goals that you have brought to your academic and professional achievements. Don't just seek to be the best entrepreneur, soldier, programmer, nurse, or executive. Dream of being the most loving spouse and the most devoted parent possible. Call your mother. Trust me, she'll appreciate it, and not just today because it's Mother's Day. The most impactful and important part of my day is when I get my daughter Maya up to get her ready for school in the morning and wish her sweet dreams each night. It makes everything else worthwhile. I love running a city. I love the things I get to do, from the nation's largest port, which brings 40% of the goods into this nation, the Olympics, which we won to come back for the Summer Games in America for the first time in decades, building 15 new rapid transit lines for those LA folks. We're gonna work on that traffic thing. But spending time with my neighbor, watching the sun go down, is what makes me sleep well at night. That degree that you will leave here with today is great. It should remind you of what I shared with you, to guide the future and to continue to cross borders. But what is even greater than that piece of paper is that you get to share it on this day with loved ones, the ones that are here with you. In other words, the journey you complete today is more than a piece of paper that you'll receive in a few minutes. It's about who's here with you, your parents, your grandparents, your kids, and your loved ones, your classmates, and your old friends, the people who marched along the way with you. At the end of our days, we're left with two things in our lives: what we did and who we knew. My wish for you is that you continue to do great things, to cross those borders, to find that future and to define it, to navigate the opportunities of future hope, but that you also have the happiness and fulfillment that comes with a life lived to its fullest. Milan Kundera once wrote, "It takes so little, so infinitely little, for someone to find himself on the other side of the border, where everything, love, convictions, faith, history, no longer has meaning. The whole mystery of human life resides on the fact that it is spent in the immediate proximity of and even in direct contact with that border that is separated from it not by kilometers, but by barely a millimeter." Class of 2018, keep crossing borders. I can't wait to see what's next on your journey. Congratulations, and thank you for welcoming me here today.